Hi, welcome to Biz Jet TV. My name is Fabrizio Poli. Today I've got a special episode focused on well-being of the people that work in aviation. This is a subject that's talked about a lot right now because of COVID-19 and a lot of people being laid off and under a lot of stress. But this is something that was talked about also beforehand. It's something that I'm quite concerned about and have been for a while. Now, I'll be meeting with the European Wellbeing Aviation Committee, and the three people that set up this committee are going to be on this episode with me. So we'll be joined by Valentina Fitzpatrick, who's over in Ireland. She's a former flight attendant and also a ramp agent. She's got a lot of experience in aviation. And then we've got James Wylie, who's an air traffic controller, and he also worked as a flight attendant before that. So he'll be bringing his perspective from the air traffic controller's point of view. And we've got Helen, who's a captain, airline pilot, but also an expert in human factors and crew resource management. She teaches this subject in a number of companies around the world, so she'll be bringing her perspective to it. So very interesting panel today for you. So I encourage you to sit down and have a watch. This is applicable both to airlines and also private jet departments. If you're thinking of buying a private jet, you have to think of the human factor. And today we're going to go into detail about this, and we'll be talking about the European Wellbeing Aviation Committee's conference, which is coming up later on this year in Dublin, Ireland. So let's get straight into it now. And if you haven't subscribed to Biz Jet TV, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Give us a thumbs up and comment below. But let's get straight into it now, and off we go. Okay, everybody, welcome European Wellbeing Aviation Committee to Biz Jet TV. And well, I'm going to start off by asking you the first question, then we'll sort of go around the table here, or the screen, as those that are watching here from all over the world. Now, the aviation world is very dynamic, but also comes with a lot of stress. Now, what are the major well-being challenges with crew? When I say crew, I mean not only pilots, but I also mean flight attendants and also air traffic controllers, as we have everybody here: pilot, air traffic controller, and flight attendants.
And also ground.
And also ground, yes, because all aspects, and even ops and crewing,
Yeah.
and, everybody. So why is it? What's the challenge? What's the well-being challenge with the whole aviation team?
From my point of view, Fabrizio, is back to my days as a flight attendant. I think the challenges remain exactly the same, which are your environmental challenge, the fuselage environment challenge. So, the way that we operate mentally and physically, and the performance of humans in this environment. And I think it's all about, well-being at physical level with certain aspects. But I think Helen and Jim will probably have a different vision as well in relation to this. But I think it's not anymore about what we do during our flight path, or when we're flying as a pilot or cabin crew, but it's really what we do before and how we look after ourselves before and after. Sometimes people focus, but there's nothing I can do. I'm in this closed environment and there's nothing I can do on the fuselage. I'm limited to certain aspect of well-being. There's not much I can do. But I think there's a lot we can do before and after. I think that's what we need to focus on specifically. And the challenges are pretty much the same, whether it's hydration, a slightly sense of hypoxia, the way that we eat, the drinking, and there is certain things we can do. And I think we need to do the best as possible when we fly. And that's my take on the flight attendant point of view.
Yeah, from a pilot perspective, Helen, you being a CRM human factors instructor, what's your take on this? What are the main challenges with, apart from, jet lag, which is the first one everybody asks you about?
Well, it's funny you mentioned jet lag, actually, because funny enough, I think because jet lag is so well known and so well documented and so well researched that it's dealt with. So, the long haul crews very often grow with what they call a heavy crew. So even, you might be a little bit jet lagged and might have to be on operational duty for 10 hours. Yeah. There's a reasonably good chance that, there'll be another pilot there. They have in-flight rest. So they can just go and crawl into the bunk for 2 hours and go and have a little bit of a nap, or, play Candy Crush or whatever it is they want to do to switch off for a bit. But funnily enough, I recently did a little short informal survey at my previous employer, looking at stress, and it was very interesting because I think as far as aircrew concerned, and I'm talking about the heavy short haul operators here, the multiple sector short haul operators, which is what I'm familiar with. It's the it's the lack of plannable time off. If you have a look at a pilot's roster in hindsight, you look at 12 months, prior to now, and you can see that they did so many duty hours and they did so many days off, etc., etc. But here we are in, where are we now, April, and people on a full-time flexible roster might have friends' weddings to go to in the summer. People of my generation will have, I'd love to say 30th birthdays, but that's really not true. Higher number of birthdays, shall we, coming on. And there's no way that you can guarantee going, because you can put a request in for the day off, but until 6 weeks before the date, you won't know whether you've got the time off. So I think a lack of predictable and plannable time off. But the other one that came out, which is very interesting actually, and I don't know how much research has been done to it in aviation, certainly there's been quite a lot done in medicine, is what they call the mismatch of shift work with your natural chronotype. So you have people who are naturally morning types or evening types, and it's the mismatch of the shift work with your natural chronotype that actually causes not just the physical fatigue, but actually the stress leading up to it. Now, I know people who are evening types, they see 3 earlies on their roster, and that's it. Their anxiety is just there, festering away from the minute that roster gets published. If they have a week of 5 earlies, then it's through the roof. It's always there, that underlying element of anxiety of, that this is happening and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm the opposite. I'm an early bird. I do early for the rest of my life, frankly. Anything beyond 7 p.m, I'm fairly disinterested. Anything beyond 9 p.m, frankly, it's game over. So if I saw a late shift on my roster, then that's it. My anxiety would be through the roof, because I know that it would really, really bother me. I wouldn't be able to perform at my best. So I'd say primarily it's the 2 things. It's not just the shift work of doing the long hours. You can plan for that, but certainly it's the lack of predictable, plannable time off when you're on a flexi roster, and like I said, the mismatch of the shift work with an individual's natural chronotype, whether they're early bird or a night owl, as they say. That's what came up quite highly actually in our survey.
I actually came across a solution for that when I was living in the Middle East. My wife had a problem with her back, so we ended up looking for a craniosacral therapist, and there weren't any in Oman where we were living at the time. So we drove to Dubai, and we visited this Spanish lady that lived there. It was actually one of the top craniosacral therapists in the world, and she just happened to be in Dubai. She'd written books and whatnot, and so she sorted my wife out, and then we were talking, and we were talking about me flying at night and things like that. And so she adjusted me as well, and when she adjusted me, she said, your biological clock was completely out of sync. I recommend you have an adjustment every 6 weeks, otherwise you'll die 10 years early. I thought, and then she went in to explain, our bio clock is so important, and if you keep doing night, day, day, night, it just doesn't know. Because what a lot of people don't know is our body goes through 3 cycles in 24 hours, and the cycle at night, which kicks in after 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning, is the regeneration phase. And so the body for 2 hours regenerates certain organs, and then another 2 hours the other organs or whatever, and that's the way it rotates around. But if you are up all night, and then your body's saying, wait a minute, it's regeneration time, what are you doing flying an airplane? And then you go home and you go to bed and it's light outside, your body sort of starts to, what's going on here? And you keep doing this, and you keep it's not like you move to America, you move to California, and it's an 8-hour time zone difference, and it takes a day for every hour to adjust, and then your body eventually adjusts. When you keep changing the roster, your body's never going to adjust. And so one way to do it, and one way to sort of fight this, is to have a session with a craniosacral therapist. It's very, very good. That's what I found. It benefited me. That's something I even put in the book Health for Five when we wrote it, because this is really from experience. And I think that's an important one. Now, Jim, from an air traffic controller's standpoint, what type of challenges do you have with well-being? Because you work different hours as well.
Yeah, very much. And I can relate exactly to what Val's been saying there. But to me, there's 3 elements to it. There's the environmental piece, which is the environment you're working in. There's an awful lot of very old control towers that the facilities are not very good. They're drafty, they're cold. So when you are trying to get rest, you're either having to go a long distance away from the operational areas, and they're not nice environments to work in. Then there's the the regulatory aspects of it, which governs the hours that controllers work. So the standard shift pattern in air traffic has been 2 mornings, 2 afternoons, 2 night shifts for as long as time has been ticking. And these were based around the Heathrows and the Gatwicks of this world. But you put that into a regional context, it's mainly regional airports I've worked at.
Mm-hmm.
You put that into a regional context, it doesn't fit with the traffic patterns. Because to pick up on the point you made about the regeneration phase, on a night shift, you're coming out of that regeneration phase, and then at sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock, you're asking your body to ramp up to meet the morning departure rush, which is one of the busiest times in the day at regional airports. So it can be quite stressful knowing that that's coming, and you're trying to fire your body up, and you're trying to think, I'll have a cup of coffee and that'll give me the boost, and you're trying to do all that, and you know that your relief's an hour away. There's nothing you can do. It's you. It's on your shoulders. So that is quite challenging. And then the other aspect is the commercial aspect, especially at regional airports. They've been run on such tight budgets that staffing is being cut to the bare minimum they can get away with under regulation. Mm-hmm. So from a staff member's point of view, and again, it goes back to what Helen was saying, you can't plan your time off that far in advance because you don't know what rosters you're going to be covering. They're having to chop and change roster patterns. You're getting moved from one watch to another. And it's causing an awful lot of uncertainty. And it's putting an awful lot of pressure on the staff. And couple that with, there is a world, well, particularly in Europe, there's a shortage of air traffic controllers. The regional airports are all trying to poach them off each other as well, which is putting additional strain. And there's no ATCOs out there to recruit. So to me, the air traffic environment, particularly in the regional airports at the moment, is very, very stressful.
Yeah, okay, interesting. So next question. So in normal situations in aviation, there's a lot of stress for all of us. But now we're in this situation with COVID-19, which obviously is making the situation worse, as in a lot of people are now on the ground because the planes aren't flying. So air traffic controllers have got less airplanes to control, flight attendants aren't out on airplanes, ramp agents aren't out serving so many airplanes, and pilots aren't out flying. And they're at home, and unfortunately a lot of airlines have gone bust, and more airlines are about to go bust. That someone was saying the other day that it's going to take 10 to 15 years for the airline industry to recover, and they're probably right. But you know, I think that we're going to see a lot of changes in the next 5 to 10 years as the way we travel. And those that have been watching Biz Jet TV for a while will know about my videos about Elon Musk and flying people on rockets. I mean, I'm very much a man of the future. I like to look ahead and see what's happening, maybe because I'm a Star Trek fan and I've been since I was 4 years old, and now I'm almost 51. So, you know, it's just one of those things. So we're going to see a lot of changes. I mean, they're talking now that Boeing are developing the Boeing 797, which is going to be a single pilot commercial aircraft. Who knows? Boeing certainly have to come up with something new and that actually works, because they're on the verge of, they're not in a good space right now. Let's put it that way, without going into speculative conversations and that. But let's go on to this COVID-19. I mean, a lot of people that are watching this, obviously sitting at home thinking about, you know, private jets and whatnot. What extra stress has this put on crew right now and people in the aviation world? I mean, Val, you want to start?
I'm just not going to talk about the technical stuff, because I think Helen and Jim could relate a little bit more about what pilots are coming. From the cabin crew point of view, yes, but from pilots specifically, it's much more difficult, I think, because of the licensing and what a pilot needs to go through in terms of training to become a pilot. So that's a very specific, specific role. So it's a completely different challenge. But for me, I think what I've seen now in the industry and what COVID-19 has brought, in my view, and I know that could seem very naive or could sound very naive, but I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, in my view, in the sense I see people focusing much more on what we took really long to bring in the industry, which was the connection in between management, individuals, and bringing regulators to listen to the organization. So we wanted to actually reduce the gap in between those three entities. And suddenly, in the region of one week, we discovered that actually the regulators and organization and individual are willing to work together. So those individuals in each entities are now willingly, coming forward to want to create more connection between people, to want to keep the industry together and engage and connect and start to come up with different ideas. So yes, there is a huge issue there, and we have to take those things on board realistically. But as yourself, Fabrizio, I like to think a little bit about globally and the future, and what can we actually take on board and learn, and what are the opportunities now at the moment. So from a mental and physical perspective and point of view, I think people is reconnecting much more with human connection and the human side of aspect of our industry. So we are much more in contact with ourselves. We want to be with people, and we are, humans are, people, we are kind of, we are in a certain way born to be in a herd and in contact with other human beings. So I think this is highlighting very much, well, it's always been there, but now suddenly it's just come to light much more stronger. So this is my view in relation to generally like people and where we at as a human at the moment.
Yeah, it's a time of reflection for everybody. I mean, now we've got a bit more time to reflect on how things have gone up until now and how maybe we could change things and improve things. Sometimes the aviation industry, or sometimes all the time, it's very hectic, it's very fast moving. And sometimes things are moving so fast that you haven't got time to change. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of changes happen after accidents have happened, when maybe there've been whistleblowers out there for a while saying, by the way, we should change this, we should change that. But, the authorities don't listen until an airplane crashes and 200 people die. Now we've got more time to reflect, hence this chat that we're having right now. We're talking about, the well-being of the aviation community. This COVID-19 is giving time for people to reflect and to watch what we're saying right now. Helen, how about you? What's your perspective on this whole COVID-19 thing for crew and aviation in general?
Oh, there's a couple of things actually. Something that you just mentioned actually I want to pick up on. You said it's going to take 10 to 15 years for the industry to recover. But that's interesting you say recover, because recover to what?
Yeah, true.
Does it have to recover? Yeah. Does it have to recover to what it was? Does it have to be bigger? Does it have to be better? Or is it just going to end up being different?
Or are we all going to start flying rockets?
I don't think.
Are we all going to start flying rockets and electric vertical takeoff and landing things? Because that's where we're going.
Drones are the way forwards. Yeah, but I think it will regenerate. I think the word I would use is regenerate. I think it will regenerate. It'll actually sort of rebirth almost another evolution of the industry. Mm-hmm. Frankly,
yeah,
it's first of all going to be very much based on immediate demands and needs. Personally, I think the holiday industry will be the one that picks up first, because people are just get off this country. I need some sunshine, please. Mind you, it's quite nice out there today. Be the uncertainty for your livelihoods. If we look back 2.5 years ago, Monarch collapsed. Mm-hmm. Within days, literally days, pilots were being snapped up by other airlines straight into jobs if they were already type rated. Mm-hmm. The actual airframes were absorbed into to fill their market share. Their market share immediately got absorbed. The pilots were snapped up. The office staff were redistributed. The holiday elements were bought out by Hayes Travel. And all of a sudden, if I look at my organisation at Flybe, and there's nowhere to go, because at the point where it collapsed, it was the start of the day. There's nowhere to go now. Is there going to be anywhere to go in a month, 6 months, a year, 4 years? If we have a look at the state of the contracting of the businesses that we so they should. So what opportunities are there going to be there for not just the pilots of Flybe, but the excess pilots from the existing organisations as well? So I think going back to what Val said, yes, it's a huge financial commitment. We've got a lot of people at Flybe who this is their first job. They've only been in the line 6 months, got huge debts to pay, and seemingly no way of paying them back and getting another job. And I that has got to be, again, it comes back to the control thing in a way. We talked earlier about the fact you had lack of predictable time off, and actually I think it's the lack of a predictable future, the lack of opportunities, and the lack of knowing what's going to be available in the future has got to be difficult for anybody, let alone aviation people.
Yeah. Jim, what about air traffic? You got less planes landing at your airport right now?
Yeah, very much. Again, a lot of the fears and a lot of the challenges echo what has been said elsewhere. I mean, the controllers have seen a complete upheaval of the normal traffic patterns. A lot of the regional airports have either closed altogether or on very, very limited opening hours. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the staff have been put on what they're calling furlough. So the big challenges for them is, how do they maintain their currency in position? So there's the regulatory piece. So that's going to be weighing on their minds. Mm-hmm. Security of their jobs going forward. I mean, to be honest, I think we may see a couple of regional airports fall by the wayside through this, simply because the way traffic is going to re-emerge out of this, I think it's going to be very, very different. Mm-hmm. So picking up on what Helen was saying, but I think Helen's right. This will start to drive change, because there's already been some changes starting to filter through in even in air traffic. So new technologies are emerging, things like remote towers. Yeah. And the one thing in the UK, we've got a ridiculous number of air traffic providers in the UK, all competing with each other, airports providing their own. I think what we may start to see out of this is a consolidation of air traffic provision in the UK as well, particularly at the airport level. Mm. So I think there's an awful lot happening, and an awful lot's going to come out of this. And I think air traffic is going to look very, very different, because the pressure is there to start driving through some of these changes to make air traffic delivery much more efficient.
Yeah, plus now, again, a lot of people are in their garages inventing stuff. Yes. There was a thing circulating on social media the other day about, Isaac Newton came up with all his ideas during the plague because he was shut down. So who knows, the Elon Musk of the future's tampering in his garage on some new flying machine or computer program that's going to help air traffic. Already we see, I think there's about 50 or 60 different projects of these drones / electrical vertical takeoff and landing vehicles that fly people and cargo being developed right now. Elon Musk talking about flying people on rockets from anywhere to anywhere in less than an hour. So, we're going to see this kind of development over the next 10 years, maybe even sooner. And maybe this whole reset is an opportunity to bring out certain new technology. I mean, we've seen the price of oil, I was checking this morning, under $20 a barrel. And I thought, wow, that's never seen that before. So even if you have your own airplane, it's a great time to go flying, because guess what? Fuel's really cheap. But anyway, what would you recommend to the employers? So the people that own the airlines, the people that own the private jets right now that aren't doing so much flying, some employers have gone to the extent with, you know what, we'll just sack everybody, or we'll sack 50% of the workforce, and we'll just let them go. Who cares? I mean, is that the right approach? I mean, of course, they're not making any money. Different with a private jet owner. It's a whole different financial model. And I always say to people, in the airline industry, we know that the airplanes make money when they're in the air, and they've got people on the airplanes paying for the ticket. That's when they make money. And right now, that's not happening. But with the private jet, it's a different financial model where the airplane has to be available 24/7, and that's how the owner can make money with the airplane, by springing into action and going places where other people can't go, which is exactly what's happening right now. People are moving around with their jets. The private jet travel has gone down about 70%, which is normal. But, corporations and private individuals that own their own airplanes are moving around. Not as many deals are happening as normal, but deals are still happening. But in general, what would be, so there's two sides. Recommendation to the employers, and then recommendations to crew. What should they be doing right now?
To be honest, Fabrizio, as a committee, this is all we're doing, and we will always analyze the situation, and we're trying to come up with solutions that they're practical to the aviation industry. And realistically, the organization have done their best. They found themselves in this situation as well. Organizations are made by people. So some people are good, some people aren't very good. But I think I like to focus on the fact that my organization, perhaps, they have found it really, really hard to lay off staff. So they kept certain amount of staff to do the cargo operation. So cargo is still very active, and it's quite
very active. Yes, very active.
Opportunity for the industry. Like, sometimes people doesn't really see from the outside what's going on, but there's a lot of things going on and a lot of opportunities. So the management, I suppose, as a normal humans, they found themselves into this situation whereby they have to keep certain amount of staff, keep doing the cargo, which is very limited, obviously, compared to the passenger planes. And then they have to lay off the staff. But what I found that was very good. Now, I think there was a lot of communication going on. I felt pretty much engaged with my management. They really found it hard to make those decisions. But in the same sense, now they found themselves in a new position they've never been before. They want to keep the staff engaged. And that's exactly what, as a committee, we want to help organization, to keep the engagement with staff. Whether the staff is being laid off at the moment temporarily, we will need the staff to be ready to come back, at a certain time. So we need the staff to be refreshed, we need the staff to be engaged, but this is ultimately about mental health, about mental readiness, about making people feel that we are there, that someone is listening. Mental health is a big issue, no matter what we talk about in the aviation industry. When we talk about performance, business, money, finances, we need to place human at the center of all of those operations. Human are the one that drive organizations. And if they're not fit to perform, if they're not mentally fit to do their job, but also happy, in their career, and they don't feel the support at mental and physical level, then I think we have a problem and we have an issue. So what we are trying to do is really help organizations that are willing to do the work with us to really reconnect with this stuff. And I think engagement is really important. So that's for my point. It's really, really important. And just ask someone, how are you and how you feel? And then we can get on to do some refreshment and create some type of engagement. But I think this is what management should do at this level.
Yeah. Okay. What about the individuals then, the employees? I mean, what can we do as individuals to keep ourselves positive, to keep ourselves going? I mean, I know flight safety and some of the training schools out there have decided to put a lot of their training online. Now, of course, you can't do the flight simulation online, well, at least not yet, but that's coming. It's coming because I've been speaking to some people that are coming up with some very interesting solutions. It's some very interesting solutions. So some of the training courses can be done online, like human factors, CRM, dangerous goods, even the ground school to learn a new aeroplane. All that can be done online. A lot of it is already computer based. And so, a lot of people are using Zoom for conference calls, and you can do that for training courses as well. But then you can only do so much. But, we have to keep ourselves positive. We have to keep ourselves moving. Fortunately, I live in the UK. I'm allowed to go out, do my run every day. Some countries, you're not even allowed out the house. Some people have been telling me they've got the police outside the door of their apartment building. And if they go out, they have to show a piece of paper saying where they're going. And then they follow them where they go, or they track their phone and to make sure they do go where they say they're going. So, then, of course, you just buy yourself one of these bicycles and set up a gym in the house. But we have to think the first thing that we have to be doing, I think at least, is keep your body going. Keep moving your body. Buy a trampoline if you can't buy anything else, and use the trampoline. They say 10 minutes on a trampoline is like 1 hour jog. Plus it gets the lymphatic system going as well, which is even better. So,
I've had 3 kids, Fabrizio. Trampolines are not for me.
No? Okay.
No.
I've got 4 kids. My kids are all right with the trampoline.
They are not my friend, okay?
But anyway, so Helen, what do you think can people do right now from an employer's perspective and from a crew's perspective? Because obviously the employer's there to make money and the crew member's there to perform. So,
Yeah, I think fundamentally what we're going back down here into is what we call the operational or organisational resilience. So we've basically got a situation where there is no procedure, there's no planned training. There's no schema. There is nothing that we can fall back on, no process in order to know what to do in this situation. Okay, it's not a standard number one hydraulic
it's a black swan event
that you press this and you do it is quite literally. And actually, do you know what, as humans we do that quite well, because we're quite lucky that not only do we have our rational or our logical input that goes into our decision making processes, but actually in a situation where there are no rules, it's actually impossible for a human to make a decision without an emotional or intuitive input. And fundamentally, what that boils down to is it's your gut instinct. You kind of do what you think is best. And actually, you know, we do that almost every day of our operational lives. There is always something, however minor, that you haven't specifically been trained for. So I would say for employers, do what you think is best with the information available to you at the time. If that information changes, don't be afraid to change your mind, to review that decision and do the whole process again. Okay, there's so much, I think, backlash in the media, I think, certainly with governments, about talking about U-turns and this sort of stuff. And it's almost seen that, well, if more information is available and you change...
I'm not.
No, I know, and it really...
They're hopeless. I mean...
It bugs me because they make such a huge fuss about, oh, the government's made a U-turn. Yeah, well, that's because something else
I'm not a fan of governments as well.
Review their decision.
So government,
you know? Well done.
Put them in the trash can.
Okay, we'll get you on your high horse. Okay, let's get the government out of this conversation right now, shall we? But you know, do what you think is best with the information available to you at the time, and don't be afraid to review that decision when more information becomes available, whatever that may be, in whatever shape or form. Don't worry about, you know, what is the right thing. In this situation, there is no right outcome. You have to do what's right for you at the time. You know, what you think makes sense to you at that time, and be okay with that decision, have that confidence. From the crew perspective, yes, this is unprecedented times. I mean, we've talked about, you know, 10 to 15 years for it to recover. Mm-hmm. Something will regenerate. Something will happen this year that stuff will start regenerating, even if it's just the hope that thing is moving and morphing into something, and the evolution into something else.
There'll be some sort of disruption. Yeah, hopefully technology will come in and disrupt, and then suddenly there's jobs for
maybe. But if I'm honest with you, I think I would go with the mindset that I was like, bear with me here, when I was actually in labour, delivering one of the children, whichever one it was, and you have no idea how long it's going to last. It's awful, you know, you're in pain and you don't know how long it's going to last, but it will come to an end. And I think that sort of mindset, make the most of this time that you've been given to take stock, to relax, to lie in the garden reading a book with a beer, because you can. Mm-hmm. To only go shopping once every 4 days because you're not allowed any more than that, whatever it is. But just to actually make the most of this time, actually enjoy this enforced downtime to mentally, psychologically relax, knowing that at some point, whenever that point is, it will get better, it will change. It's not going to be forever. And I think just having that, the difficulty again, it comes back to the whole being in control, is the uncertainties. We don't know when that moment's going to be. But as when we talk about mindfulness, when we talk about being in the here and now, let's just enjoy this. The weather is glorious outside. I'm supposed to be on a Duke of Edinburgh's Award expedition in the Peak District with 23 teenagers today. Yeah. I'm actually quite disappointed because it's been blowing cold for the last 2 years, really wet, drizzly, muddy, 2 degrees at night sort of thing. Yeah. And I was thinking, oh, wow, look at this. This is gorgeous. But actually, do you know what? I'm quite enjoying just being in my garden, watching my birds on the bird feeder and accepting that it won't be forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I look at a lot of what the Navy SEALs do for their training. And the resilience that's built into their training system. And I think, you know, maybe some of that should be incorporated in, it is to a certain extent in what we do in aviation, but it needs to, I mean, when we bring pilots in for private jets, we give them some other type of training as well from a security standpoint and self-defense and whatnot, just to make them aware that, you know, they are going to be going places where the airlines don't go. And you have to sort of have eyes at the back of your head. And if you are going to go out together, you know, especially females, you know, make sure you stick with the rest of the crew. Or if you do go places, you know where you're going and you know how to defend yourself. I mean, I put my whole family through a Krav Maga training course. And I went into the training course, you know, black belt taekwondo here. I showed the instructor how good I am. And knocked me over just like that. And I soon thought, okay, I need to leave that outside the door because I do not know how to defend myself, which was the case. We did this training for 2 days, and my wife now, when she goes out in the evening to go and deliver something or go and see somebody or whatnot, she's always thinking, okay, I've just parked the car. What have I got on me that I can use as a weapon? And it could be a pen, it could be the keys. She's always
keys are good.
Yeah, keys are good. I mean, umbrellas. This guy taught us to use anything. But the most interesting thing was the whole mindset side of the training. And I thought we were going to be punching and kicking all day long, but no, a lot of it was mindset, our psychology, and the psychology of these evil people, so to speak. And I thought it was really, really interesting. And that, that element, built into, resilience. I mean, right now, here we are. Navy SEALs are trained to come across stuff that they're not expecting. And sometimes as pilots, we've got our checklist, our QRH, and okay, that light's come on. It's that emergency. Is a member item? No, it's this checklist. Okay, let's go down the checklist. But what happens if an emergency happens that's not in the book? Now what do you do? Mm-hmm. And that has happened. That famous aeroplane, airplanes that had all the engines flame out, and all the that guy was at United Airlines.
But that basic concept, believe it or not, actually happens more often than you think.
Yes,
I mean, you think about the last approach you flew, and you've never been trained to fly that specific approach on that specific aircraft in those weather conditions with their air traffic controller, with that traffic around you, with those clearances. So you're permanently always just adapting, a schema of what you know and adapting it to fit. And that's not recognized enough, I don't think, within the industry, just how much people do adapt. Every single day you are facing situations for which you have not specifically been trained. And yet most of the time it actually goes pretty well. Which is quite good.
I remember the first time I flew to India, it was a total shock. First of all, I had to ask the controller 3 times to say what he was saying because I couldn't understand what he was talking about. And he was supposed to. And then they have this thing where the pilots tell the controller what they're going to do. And so you had this guy above you suddenly cutting right in front of you. And I'm like, and so my colleague looks at me and says, no, but this is the way they do things here. Now I know why Air Canada don't fly to India. It was just, it's not that it's dangerous or not. It's just they have a whole different way of doing things. And it took me a while to get used to their accent and understand what they're actually telling me to do. But anyway, but it was totally unexpected, and no ground school course was given to us. And okay, you're flying to India next week, and this is what you're going to expect. It just happened, and I had to deal with it. But there you go. It's just one of those things.
You did, and you're still here.
And I'm still here. Yeah, exactly.
So you did the right thing.
Yeah, but I think now with the time of reflection, there are things that we can read and look into. And my suggestion, Bear Grylls is one of my favorites. Navy SEALs, survival. Those people that are push themselves to the extreme, they have to come up with solutions in situations they've never experienced before. Maybe that can help and give people a little comfort as well. Jim, over to you. As an air traffic controller, and obviously you've got an employer, but also you and your team of air traffic controllers. I mean, what advice would you give to both sides of the equation?
I mean, a lot of what I'm thinking is exactly what the Helen and Val have been saying. I think from an employer's point of view, make sure your managers are supported, because the frontline teams are going to look to their managers for information, for guidance. So make sure that the communication's there. As Helen says, things are changing rapidly. Tell people what's going on. The more information they've got, what it's like. You're sitting there, your flight's delayed, you're told it's for operational reasons. What does that mean? Has the wing fallen off? Has my bag disappeared? We don't know. Keep communicating, and I think that makes the staff feel part of what's going on and valued as well. I think that's really important. And I think there is opportunities buried in here as well. For organisations, they're going to have to start planning for coming out of this. Yeah. Engage the staff. They know what's going to be needed on the front line. Engage the staff. Start developing the plans now, and actually start to look for opportunities for taking advantage of new technologies, new ways of working. There's opportunities built in here. I know we're all reacting at the moment, but there is time in amongst that to sit back and reflect. And I think the staff on the front line who are sitting at home enjoying the weather and that, use them.
Mm-hmm.
Use them. They want to be part of the business. They're part of the solution as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity built, sort of buried in here. We just have to look really closely for it. But from the employee's point of view, yeah, they've got to look after themselves. Mental welfare is absolutely critical. And forums like what we've been discussing, putting them all in touch with one another, just get them talking, develop these support mechanisms, but get them engaged with the employers as well. Get that communication going. I think that is the key for me, is communication. That's what.
There has to be a purpose to that as well, because we see a lot of employee or ex-employee now that they're going to LinkedIn and they create those groups and things. It's a little bit like rely on the past and stuck in the past without any future thing. Like, the purpose of the engagement is to actually realistically bring people into the future where you are needed, like you're going to come back and you need to be refreshed. And so people needs to be that they are valued, and they are valuable individuals. So we're not here just like, to promote, let's engage and have a chat with each other. It isn't about that. It's a strategically planned, because we need to create the opportunity for everybody else to return and to be trained and to be current, and everybody be able to actually see that there's going to be a different industry, probably for a certain aspect, but their job is going to remain the same and they have to be ready to come back. So it's very much realistic, the approach that we have. And also I think, like Fabrizio, it's about your attitude. Like, when you were saying, like, how does an individual look after themselves and what do they do? It's a choice. It's your attitude toward your job and your career. Why did you choose the aviation industry in the first place? This is a specific industry. And the reason behind there are just like, oh, I need a job for the money. This is an industry that currently employ very highly skilled individuals. We have human factors, and we have pilots, cabin crew, air traffic controller, aircraft engineer, ramp operation. It's all skilled. So if you choose to be in this career, you need to look after yourself exactly as you will look after this career. It's exactly the same thing. It's your attitude. So for me, it all goes together. And it's your personal choice to continue to be in the industry and to be performing in the industry in the best possible way.
Yeah, I think a holistic approach to all this is the best way to do it, instead of compartmentalizing. Even with training and everything, the whole picture needs to be. I mean, one guy said to me many years ago, he said, CRM is not just the pilot and the captain and the first officer, and it's not just the people on the aeroplane. CRM is the whole company, and even the whole environment. Let's bring air traffic into it as well, the engineer. It's the whole thing. And so the holistic approach is important, and it's the same with our bodies. We have to think of ourselves, holistically. Move that body, because you move your body, it affects your mind. And it gives you more positivity, which helps you go through the day with a lot more energy and positive mindset, which will help you approach the problems with a solution oriented mind, not another problem.
Look, there is also the reality of it's, and I remember one of our friends, which is not here currently, but he always used to say, it's okay not to be okay. We have to embrace as well when we're not well, when we're sad, when we're emotionally defeated. And let's not kid ourselves. We're human. And sometimes we're going to be down and we're going to be low. But it's the way that we embrace those emotions. We accept it, and we need to leave those emotions fully, and then return to our normal state. So normalizing those emotions is really important now. So that's why I think that the media are bringing people to this frenzy, really. Like, people is no longer in reality at the moment. They just make people to be heroes and angels and things. Well, this is not the way that we want to go. We want to remain in touch with reality, and with the wonderful work that we're doing. We have a Helen in here, and Jim, that works with other air traffic controller and the HR management, and in training and development in this concept of bringing all the roles of the aviation industry together. We have also the students, the future of the aviation industry professionals. They're going to be involved into this. It's really important that we see holistically where we're going.
Yeah, I think emotions are really important, and sometimes even in training, the emotional element isn't taken into consideration. I mean, in order to peak perform, someone has to feel good. And if you're bashing them down continuously, that's how they used to train the military back in the day. that you would just join the army or air force, wherever you were going, and they would bash you to try and break you. And those that didn't break stayed, those that broke left. And that's the way they did it. But it's a very old-fashioned way of doing things.
Don't get me started.
Helen, you have something to say, please share.
No, it's probably best I don't.
I know where you're going to go. I had this conversation with Val the other day. I almost punched the guy in the face once, but I didn't. But anyway.
Go ahead, let it go. Free yourself.
I think Val's absolutely right, and I think we need to get people as they come into the industry as well, and start embedding this well-being, look after yourself sort of ethos into the industry right when people join. And I think that's where the work we're doing will filter right back down to that, and the next generation coming through, hopefully they'll learn from our experience and be better pilots, air traffic controllers.
The way I look at it, whether you're an air traffic controller, pilot, a flight attendant, an engineer, we are in an environment, aviation, where peak performance is key.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And if we look at the training of an Olympic athlete or professional sports person, which could be Cristiano Ronaldo or LeBron, the basketball player in the States, those people, in order to be champions, they have to train in a certain way. And the training is not just physical, it's also mental and emotional. And the emotional aspect is really, really important. You have to be emotionally engaged and positive about what you're going to do. I mean, I always take the analogy of golf. When you step onto the green to putt that ball into the hole, I mean, Jack Nicklaus said, the most important club in the bag is actually your head, your mind. And he would sit on an aeroplane before a golf tournament and he would play every single hole in his mind. And then when he stepped on the golf course, he'd already played it well. He knew that putt was going to go in because he played the shot in his mind first. And it works. Visualization works because it puts you in touch with your emotions, and that allows you to peak perform. But the environment you're in is so important. If that environment is an environment of people that keep shouting at you, it's going to be difficult to sort of blur out that noise to be able to focus to peak perform. And so what everybody has to understand, from the individual frontline pilot, ramp agent, whatever it may be, and the management behind, the trainers and whatever, we all have to understand that we're in the same boat. We're on the same team. So we all have to be working together to peak perform. Because guess what, Mr. Instructor in the simulator that shouts at your students? If that guy goes out tomorrow and suddenly there's an emergency and he can't cope with it and he crashes the airplane, Mr. Instructor, you lose your job too. Because the CAA will pull the AOC of the airline, and now everybody's out of work. So we have to understand from a holistic point of view that we're all in the same boat. We're all on the same team as individual companies, aeroplanes, and as the entity of aviation, of civil aviation. Safety is important, but we're only going to get to that safety if we focus on peak performance. So let's learn from other industries like the Olympic athletes, like professional sports teams that have done incredible things. And let's try and understand and learn from them. All the Navy SEALs, as we spoke about, Navy SEALs.
Look at NASA as well, NASA and the Navy and the Air Force, they all have the core basic. I always say those things when I'm going to training courses to teach students. They always have the basic sport and fitness. Why? Because it's your attitude. The same way I'm training and I take my bodybuilding and my powerlifting, it's the same way that I'm taking my job. It's an aptitude to perform. So people doesn't understand. They think they are unrelated, but actually very related. So the way that that's what fitness is teaching me, is to stay committed to myself. So the same commitment, it's really, for me, it's reflecting to my own life, whether it's in work or whether it's in my private life. So, and I think, Fabrizio, you can say the same with your karate.
No, I think the emotional side is important, and so now we've got some time to reflect. Let's look at those in other industries that are into peak performance. And I'm saying this out there to management, entrepreneurs, and the pilots and the flight attendants who fly the planes and maintain the planes and do the air traffic controlling and everything. Let's all look at peak performance and let's think, what can we take from outside aviation and bring it into aviation to help us be safer and perform better and feel better while we're doing this, which is really, really important. And let's think of the people around us on our team. Let's make sure that they feel good about what they're doing. And if they do something wrong, let's not bash them. Let's try and come across in a way that motivates them. Because at the end of the day, if they feel down, their performance is going to go down, and our performance is going to go down too. So, we're in the same boat. That commitment, I think, is really, really important. Anyway,
there's a lovely video online, actually. I don't know if you've seen it, Fabrizio, that Owen Sims has done, and it's called The Application of Mindfulness in Flight Training, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. It was something that he did at EAT, the European Aviation Training Symposium in Berlin, I think it was. It's either called something like the application of psychotherapy techniques in flight training or mindfulness in flight training. But it basically says exactly what you've just said, is that actually as the instructor you can influence the outcome so much more than just telling people to do it better. It's quite interesting, actually. I'm sure Valentina and Jim have both seen it.
Yeah, you should kind of probably introduce Owen to Fabrizio, because I think I've seen a lot of. I would love to do, I think Owen, whenever he has a little bit of time to come back to us, but Fabrizio, it'd be very good that Helen and Owen will work with you on what we're doing after, because they have a fantastic, together they make a wonderful team. And Fabrizio talked to me about different things that I think, Helen, you would really embrace very well with Owen. So
okay.
Yeah, Owen, special, so hopefully we'll bring something new to the industry.
Okay, thank you everybody for being on, and
that's okay.
Very much.
Invite people to the website, European Wellbeing Aviation Committee, and your conference that you'll be having. When is the conference, Val? Is it
now it's been moved to the 17th of September at the Irish Aviation Authority.
Okay, is it going to be available online as well for people to watch?
Yes, it's going to be online. We have the video from last year, and I think we're going to set up some sort of way for people to follow us also from the outside. Yeah,
that's a good idea. Yeah, because that's what I've been noticing recently. A lot of conferences are being put online now, and I think they should always have that option, because if people can't travel because they haven't got the time, and they can watch live for a fee. We hope that people will, because our conference is very much about human content, about what we want to kind of convey, and the message is really to be together in their room. But obviously there will be opportunity for people to look at the conference from a media channel. Okay, good. Thank you very much, everybody. So as you can see, peak performance is very important. And as I always say, when you're buying a private jet, the jet is only one element that needs to be looked at carefully. You have to look at the pilots that are going to fly the airplane and manage the airplane for you, the flight attendant, the engineer, how the maintenance is going to be done. These are other elements which are very, very important, because you can buy a fantastic airplane, but if it's not flown properly, then it could turn into a piece of junk. So it's very important to hire the right people. As business people, entrepreneurs, you know that the most important element in any business are the people that run the business, the team. Every business is made up of people, and this is the main focus here. And it's particularly with a private jet where you're spending 20, 30, maybe 50, 60 million dollars on a jet. You really need to focus on the people. They need to be paid well. They need to have a positive environment in which to work. They have to have enough time off. All these elements need to be there in order for these people to peak perform and fly around the world safely. So that's really, really important. When I consult with people on the acquisition of a private jet, I look at the other elements as well. So when you get me, you don't just get me, you get my team. You get the planes, but you also get the people. And I think this is really important. If you want to book your consultation with me, you can click on, but you can write me an email, and we can schedule a call and take it from there. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you're going to come along to the European Wellbeing Aviation Committee conference in Dublin. It's going to be interesting. It will be also available online to watch for those of you that can't travel to the conference. But it's something that they are doing, and I think is very well needed in this industry. If you haven't subscribed to Biz Jet TV, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Comment below, let us know what you thought about this episode. Give us a thumbs up, because that helps us and helps get the word out there about Biz Jet TV and private jets, and how the private jet is a business tool. And that's all from Fabrizio Poli on Biz Jet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.